Hello and thanks for joining me, not for some landscape photography this time. A few videos back I mentioned that I might do a very quick spin around my van to show you how I've got it set up. I was never intending to do something like Mr. Heaton, for example, or Mr. Danson, where I talk you through the entire build. The reason for that is there's almost nothing to it, quite apart from which this is not a van life channel. I just use it as a tool, bizarrely, as much for work as for photography, because when I go away on business, I prefer to take the van rather than go stay in a hotel, because I got all my bits and pieces around me. It's much more convenient. Anyway, the van itself, well, it's a 2021 Ford Transit Custom. And when I bought it, I thought I'm going to go for the top of the range spec. I bought it 3 years old. And the idea was for it to see me out. I don't intend to even think about changing it unless something catastrophic happens. So I thought, well, I'll go for the top of the range, because otherwise, sure as eggs is eggs, 5 years down the road, I'll be wishing it was automatic, or I'll be wishing it had cruise control. So I've got all of that sort of stuff. It's a 2-litre turbo engine, so plenty of grunt. And to be honest with you, the van build itself is ultra lightweight, so it's pretty good on fuel as well. So I got the van in November 24. And the first thing I did is book it into a local place called Anglesey Vans. They're very highly recommended. And I said to them, look, I just want you to line it, cut the windows in, cut the roof vent in, and put some flooring down, and then give it back to me and I'll do the rest. They gave me all sorts of choices about materials and all that sort of thing. They couldn't have been more helpful. So if you're anywhere near Anglesey and you're looking for any kind of van conversion work, I can hand on heart recommend them. So I got the van back, and the reason I didn't want them to furnish it was because I didn't really know what I wanted. I had a couple of things in mind, but I knew I was going to kind of build it around me as I went along, so I couldn't give them predetermined plans or anything like that. Now, the most important thing for me was that I wanted to be able to get my electric bike in and out nice and easily. I love using the bike, and I thought the combination of the van and bike would be perfect. I didn't want to sling it on a rack on the back because of security and that sort of thing, quite apart from which it weighs a ton, so I couldn't see myself lifting it up and down off a rack. So I thought what I'll do is create a lengthways garage so that I can easily wheel the bike in and out. What I've done is repurposed a ramp that we used to use for our couple of aging Labradors to get in and out of the car for walks. So I got somewhere handy to keep my deck chair. And then I've got the old dog ramp. So that doesn't take a minute to put up. The obvious question is, how do I get the bike out past the bed leg? Well, I thought about that, and it just slides out really easily. And that means I can easily get at the bike, roll it down the ramp. But one thing about giving myself access through the back doors is it gives me somewhere to stash my tripods and a brolly and all that sort of thing. But it also means that however I'm oriented when I'm parking, I got the opportunity to sit here and look at a view, or to sit and look out the side door at a view. So it just gives me options. But I do find that I use both doors pretty much the same amount of the time. So if I'd had a transverse bed and this was a standard garage area, I'd be kind of limiting myself as to how I can use the van. Now that is going to take up a fair bit of floor space, so how am I going to work around that? Well, I'd always thought that I would have the bed quite high up. I didn't want a bed that I have to make up, pulling slatted legs out and all that sort of thing. I wanted the bed permanently made up, but it's also somewhere useful to chuck a backpack and other bits and pieces when I'm not sleeping. Now, this is where one of the big advantages of being a short arse comes in, because the bed doesn't have to be very long. It also doesn't have to be very wide. So as long as it fitted the footprint of the bike, that was fine. And I've got, well, I'll show you, about this much headroom. Well, I don't need any more than that. I go to bed when I'm sleeping. I don't need to be able to sit up in it or anything like that. And it's worked out perfectly. A lot of people looked at it and thought, how the hell do you sleep in there? But what I had in mind was submariners, where they have triple bunks with about the same headroom as I've got. And I thought, well, these boys do that for 6 months at a time, so I'm sure I can manage the odd night. It's turned out really well, and I sleep extremely comfortably. So that's the bed arrangement. What about the rest of the van? Well, the thing is, I didn't really want to mess around with electrics and plumbing. I'm used to sleeping in tents. You know, I don't need a tap. I don't need a USB pump. I don't need some kind of hot water system. All of that for me was always going to be complete overkill. Plus, the way I've got it set up gives me flexibility. I've got a little 10-litre tank with a tap on the front, which works perfectly. The water is fed by gravity, which is brilliant because there's a lot of it about and it's completely free. And I also carry a spare 25-litre tank tucked away behind the driver's seat so that I've got extra water if I need it. Although to date, I've actually never topped up the 10-litre from the 25-litre, but I'm sure that'll happen if I go away for any longer. For wastewater, well, I chuck it out there. It's not a problem at all. It's not got any soap contamination in it or anything like that. And if it comes to it, I'll just put it in one of my drinking bottles and take it home with me. So really not worried about that sort of thing. And for a sink, I've just got a collapsible bowl. I did want a stand-up worktop though. So where I built the furniture, my desk area is standard desk height. And then where I sort of stand and make a cup of coffee and cook something is at worktop height, slightly lower than you might have it. Again, one of the advantages of being a short ass, but it all works perfectly well. Now for a fridge, I've got a little car fridge that I bought off of Amazon for my old van. So what I do is I generally don't plug it in. I just bring a couple of ice blocks from home and they'll last me 2 or 3 days easily. But if I do need to plug it in, it'll run off the car 12 volt or the inverter that's built into my Solix. And then for electrics, I had a battery pack for my old little van, a 200 watt job. And I bought an Anker Solix 1000 watt hour battery bank, which I charge while I'm driving, and the little one is plugged into 200 watts of solar on the roof. Again, that was fitted by Anglesey Vans for me. And it works fine. I've never run out of juice at all, and I can run my air fryer, I can run my coffee machine. You know, I'm not skimping on luxuries. I couldn't possibly go without a coffee machine, for example, but my battery pack works perfectly well for that. And I have actually got another 1000 watt hours extension battery as well that I can hook into it. So that powers everything. My lighting is mostly LED strips because they draw next to no power at all. I keep them on 24/7 and make very little inroads in my battery capacity. I've also got some other lamps, which if I need a bit of extra lighting, I can fire those up. They're USB battery powered, so you know, they'll run for a couple of hours, no trouble at all. And I've got quite a few of them, and they just attach with magnets, and I just recharge them as and when. And all of that means that I don't have any requirement for any wiring at all. So I don't have to worry about if something going wrong and I've got to start pulling panels out to get behind them to sort things out. And the same goes with plumbing, of course. One thing that I really wanted was an office space. It might sound a bit nuts in a photography van, but like I said, I use it for work. And particularly if I'm out on a trip where I'm going out sunrise to do photography, maybe do some in the evening, during the day, I have a mobile office. I've got my Starlink Mini fixed to the roof, which gives me amazing internet connection anywhere. One thing that I particularly wanted was a comfortable office chair. I didn't want to be sitting on a bench like this with a flip-up table. I need to spread out a bit. I've got a second monitor and I usually have a notebook as well. So I thought I'll make myself a small office. And I've got one kind of homely nostalgic item in here, and that's my office chair. It's very comfortable. And I inherited that from my dad when he passed away. I say inherited, I just took it. My mum wasn't going to use it. I quite like that I've got something that reminds me of him in here, and I think he'd approve of the fact that it's helping me carry on with my photography and enjoyment of life. He worked with me in his latter years on quite a few IT projects. So it's kind of fitting, really, that I've got something that specific. It does roll around the van when I'm driving, so I had to come up with an easy, quick bungee solution to keep it in place. I've been using the van now for, I finished it about this time last year, I think, so I used it all through last year. It suits me just fine. I've made tiny little minor alterations as I go along, but for the most part, everything works just fine, and I don't really think about anything. When I'm out and about, I'm thinking about my photography or perhaps work, but the van itself just has fitted itself around me quite nicely. Now, as for the actual cabinet building, I really didn't want to add weight to the van unnecessarily. I look at other people's builds and I think, well, you've got drawers and you've got cupboard doors and all that sort of thing. And it just seems to me unnecessary weight. So what I did was I built some shelves and I used these little canvas boxes that you can buy in sets of 3 in various sizes off of Amazon for next to nothing. They work really well. If I need anything, I just heft the box down, get what I need, put the box back. So my top shelf has got a little fiddle running along the front of it. That a wooden lip, sorry. I used to be a sailor, so anyway, yeah, so it's got a fiddle running along it, so they've never moved. They don't fly off, because I tend not to corner on two wheels anyway. Under the bench that I'm sitting on, I've also got some extra boxes under there, and they form my kitchen drawers, if you like. And as a storage system, it works brilliantly. I've got more storage than I need, so that's worked fine. Now for seating, I deliberately bought a van with just 2 seats, and I had Anglesey Vans put a swivel plate under the passenger seat. Usually it lives facing into the van. I don't often have passengers, so it's quite handy. But that works really well. And then this little bench that I'm sitting on is somewhere to put my feet up when I'm sat back here. I've built a couple of little tables for when I'm in relaxing mode, so I don't have to be glued to my office desk. If I want to watch a video and eat a chicken kebab, I can flip this table up here, or I've also got a swing out lagoon leg table just above the fridge. But I suppose the thing is that having built it around my requirements, like for example, not wanting to block off the back of the van with a transverse bed, not wanting to have a bed sofa combination, even though it's completely different to any other van I've ever seen, it works really well for me. And I don't understand why more people don't have a van like this. Now, one thing, it's only a one-person van. The lovely Mrs. G said, oh, I've never set foot in it, and she's ridden in the passenger seat, but I don't think she's actually set foot in the habitation area since I got it. Yeah, it works for me. That's my van. I'm not going to say anything else about it ever again unless something goes horribly wrong. But thank you very much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, why not subscribe and join me next time for some photography. Cheers.